Hello people in that house are doing. So you might have heard, and I have to just say straight off the bat, Australia and New Zealand, the governments in Australia and New Zealand, the people of Australia, the people of New Zealand, they've been bullied. Particularly Australia's been hounded by China, trying to shut them up and more or less trying to shut them up. And they were the country that's being picked on. And finally the rest of the world are like, wait a second, China's actually trying to bully Australia. We can't stand for this. And I'm going to say this straight, for too long countries have let China off with more though. And I'll go into that in a few seconds. But it's time to take a stand. It's time for to take a stand because obviously China is something that we shouldn't tolerate in the super standard because obviously bullying, like they were bullying Australia. Australia has its economy's hurting already. Then just trying to say we're not going to trade with you and everything like that. Your bullying tactics, trying to say that we don't want an investigation. Shut up, Australia. If any other country has any ideas, we do the same to you. But yeah, the whole world's really turned against China now. 164 countries are on the United Nations vote on Wednesday. And when they're going to investigate the World Health Organization. Now, I hope Australia and New Zealand are the heads of that investigation because my God, the World Health Organization, and this is true, and I say this straight to people. The World Health Organization, they even took an hour today to look and see what the head of. I don't even know the name of the head of the World Organization, and I don't want to know him. I might as well say straight, and I said this straight. He's obviously very shady. He's obviously in their pockets, in the Chinese government's pockets, because he never said boo all about China. Saying they done a bad, like they did do a bad job in containing it and let it spread. But then the World Health Organization, at the time the US said we're not going to let anybody in from China, we're not going to have any planes going to China, which was the right thing to do at the time. And the World Health Organization said there was no need for that. And it can't be transmitted. Chinese government were going on shouting about they couldn't be transmitted when they were so wrong with that one day. They were very, very wrong with that. And this is, people in the Chinese government more or less saying there's nothing at all to look into. There's nothing at all. We didn't silence any doctors or anything like that. I remember this. I remember them silence doctors. I remember doctors begging the rest of the world to listen to them. To say, the dangers of this virus. And the world just, more or less turned a blind eye. And these doctors are probably still in prison or even some of them even lying in the shock somewhere. And it's straight fact. God knows what's happening. But these doctors were very, very brave people to speak up against the government and say what's happening and what was coming. And we stood alongside and we just didn't do anything. We didn't put pressure on China. We just let it happen. In other words, and it's not really it's the World Health Organization to blame for not putting the huge pressure. Like nobody could have predicted it could have went this bad, but China's responsible for this really. It could not be, they couldn't made it, but they could have contained it better. They could have, it's the non-transparency, because they didn't say anything to the rest of the world. It could have been going on since 2016. For all it could be going on for 2016, and we never knew about it because China never told anybody. And before they told anybody it was happening, it was too late. It was spread a huge amount, and it was another country. It was too late, and the harm was done before they even said anything. So you made it worse. Like China could have been said as soon as it started, right, there's something happening, tell the whole world about it, and put all the countries on alert, even the extra 2 months, if we had an extra 2 months to prepare. But no, they didn't do that. And the World Health Organization is to blame for that, because they didn't never said boo all about it. None of them ever said anything bad about China at all. Like, literally, they never said anything bad. Like, if I was in the World Health Organization now, I'd be scrutinising China. Be like, why is China refusing to let anybody investigate them? But now they really can't because there's 164 countries saying yes, and it's their own fault too because they said that. Then they started to bully Australia, which is a very, very bad idea because Australia's not going to sit down and look at them because Australia is more or less saying we're going to fight back against you. And they're standing on principles, they're standing on democracy, and they're standing on their rights and their principles, which is great because Ireland could never do that. Ireland's going to vote in favour of investigation, but that's the people in the heads in buses more or less telling Ireland. Like Taoiseach, the Leo Varadkar doesn't have a clue. He wouldn't say boo all. Like he was praising the Chinese president for the personal protection. By the way, half of it was faulty. 20% of it was faulty, and Ireland's paid a huge amount for it. And the question comes to Michael D. Higgins too, the president of Ireland. Other countries have summoned. I've seen in Norway, the king has summoned the ambassador for China to Norway. In Norway. And he summoned them. He wants questions. He wants why his people has died. So many people, and why there's so many people affected. He wants to know. And the same with the Netherlands. They summoned them, the Chinese ambassadors, and putting pressure on them, saying, why did our people die because of a virus that came from China? And, putting it hard to them, putting questions hard to them. Not a word said about the ambassador, for Ireland. Not a word. And, and I've been saying about that. And more or less they just turn the blind eye, saying to me, "Oh, we don't want to do anything. We don't want to get involved with this." And I wouldn't mind, but as I said, Leo Frank is more worried about offending the British people than offending China, because he's calling Northern Ireland overseas. Like, that's mad to say. Beside, like, I know, like, I don't know what he thinks of China other than the back garden or something. Because more or less, I say the in Leo Frank's back garden anyway. I say there's a few boxes behind the back garden of Leo Frank's house, but anyway. Of course, they should be investigated the World Health Organization. They should be all kicked out of it. Everybody's head of the World Organization. Just completely just throw them all out. Throw them all out. Get some new people who are trustworthy. Get some people from Australia, the government in Australia. Pick a few of them, put them on the World Health Organization. Because they're not going to sit down and say, "Oh, we're not going to do anything. We're going to do something." And that's what Australia. And I admire them. I admire the governments for putting huge pressure and not bowing down. If that was Ireland, the government would collapse. Because they couldn't do anything. They would be whinging and quibbling and crying, saying, "We can't, stand up to China. We can't lose all this business from China." Even though, and I go into this now, the Irish government have been whinging and quibbling and crying about air pollution. But look at this, and I tell you this, and the rest of the world too is whinging, quibbling and crying about air pollution. But who's the biggest air pollution in the world? It's China. Do you not see the amount of plastic and the amount of material come from China? And they go around with masks already because of the air pollution in some cities. And a bit has been said about it. And they're not really doing anything about them. They're whinging and quibbling and crying to Ireland, saying use of pollute whatever, like even turf and things like that. They're whinging a few turf people, a few old people lighting a turf fire is not going to kill the environment. Let's be honest. 3 or 4 people using turf to keep themselves warm from freezing to death is not going to kill the environment. But China is. China's definitely is, because there's 100, maybe 2 million factories, maybe pumping out God knows what. And smoke building up to the air. And it's China, and China's the biggest problem. We have to admit that straight. We have to say that straight. It's not any other country. Like, I'm looking, like, there's a few places now that does cause a bit of pollution, but that's understandable. It's not as big as China, obviously. China's a big industrial. Like, even you look at plastic materials, the majority of plastic materials, I don't buy any of them because I don't support China, exploiting children's child labour. Working long hours, things like that, I won't support that, and I will never support that. And for too long I kept my mouth shut about it. For too long I kept my mouth shut up. I never said it openly that I never bought Chinese kit, but I said it openly now. And I said this to a TD, and I said we shouldn't be worrying about air pollution. Like, a few old people lighting a fire is not going to kill the environment, let's be honest. It's not going to make a big difference. But China pumping out millions upon millions of plastic materials and polluting the atmosphere, that's going to cause like 1 million factories or something like that polluting the atmosphere. One person's not going to, one poor old person trying to keep himself warm from freezing to death in the winter is not going to kill the environment. Let's totally be honest here for a second. That's not a big deal compared to China. And we have to say it straight. We have to say it straight, because that's true. That's very, very true. Like, you look at China cities, just smoke everywhere. You can't see anything. You can't see anything because there's that much smoke from industry. And it's straight fact. And as I say about the Setsuan doctors and things like that, we could have knew, like, God knows, I don't know how long this could have started, like, could have been going on for, and it could have never been said. Never been said. Like, only for them doctors speaking out, I don't think China would ever say that. Like, they wouldn't have never said anything. I bet you any money they wouldn't have never said anything, only for the doctors speaking out and everybody. And I don't even have to mention Hong Kong, what was happening in Hong Kong, them trying to suppress Hong Kong. Like, that shouldn't be allowed. Like, other countries should stand up and say, well, hold on a second. Like, what they're doing here is evil. And then they're trying to censor everybody. It's just not right. And I'm saying to people, we have to stand up to China. For too long, we look the other way. And I say myself, I look the other way to some aspect. But from now on, I'm not looking the other way. I'm not looking the other way. I'm going to be very, very stern on Chinese politics. And I say to the government in Ireland, the Chinese avatars, or whatever they call them, whatever the Chinese diplomats or whatever in Ireland, I heard, like, even one person in Dublin City Council told me that they were up in Dublin telling really the government of Ireland what to do, about how to cope with this. And it's not really helpful, because you really didn't, you really shouldn't have opinions on what we be doing. We can decide our own what we can do ourselves. And I admit that Ireland has failed a bit on trying to contain the virus, and obviously the amount of people dead, and the amount of people who are infected. But at least we are trying. In China, they didn't really care. Like, they're not really at least if it happened in Ireland. What I'm trying to say, Ireland has its flaws, right? Ireland has caused troubles. trouble to his people. The 10,000 people homeless is fact in Ireland. That's a human rights offence. But China's committed way more than that. And you could say that Ireland should be up and try it too for how we handled the coronavirus. But at least we tried. In China, at least if that happened in Ireland, like if the coronavirus did start in Ireland, at least I think I think Leo Varadkar would have the urge to say to the rest of the world and put his hand up and say it's Ireland's fault. We take the full responsibility of it. We didn't control it better. We should have controlled it better. At least they would have been honest. I think they would have been honest, the government, if that happened in Ireland. If it started in Ireland, they would have put their hand up and said, I want a total investigation. But China's different. They just wanted to suppress. It could be different if they said, go ahead, we don't mind an investigation. But they didn't. And that's what's suspicious about this. I'm not saying that it could have been an act of God, for I know it could have been, but investigation has to be done. It's the same with everything. Investigation has to be done to find the cause. And there was word that destroyed a virus sap or whatever it was. I don't know. I can't prove that. I can't say that. But Australia's been talking about it. But again, to Australia and to New Zealand's government, fair play to you, and fair play to your news networks over there. Like, you put huge pressure. RTÉ could never match that. Radio television sharing in Ireland could never match what you've done, because they spin it and spin it and spin it and spin it until you'd be saying, China's sending hundreds upon millions of equipment to Timbuktu and to here, there and everywhere, and China's just great. They're just sending a huge amount of PPP everywhere for free. In fact, Ireland has to pay more than any other country for it, because that's how much they just admire Ireland. They just spin it. Like, they just spin it every way. Like any way, anything that's said bad. Like, they haven't even mentioned about Australia really, talking about, investigation. They like the spin that's saying, there has to be investigation done. They spin it every way. Like, as simple as that. But anyway, please take care, everybody. Hopefully I won't get shot by a Chinese assassin, but anyway. That's such a risk. But anyway, I hope my words and my opinion may live on, even if they did assassinate me in the morning. And, I do wish that, because China has sent diplomats, assassins over across the world to try and kill people who speak out against them. But I welcome any Chinese assassins. I give you a pot of tea and you be grand. But yeah, I'm just saying, if something does happen to me, Ireland, I would hope that my government, I'm not likely the word, but anyway, would stand up and say, you assassinated this fellow, he's a political activist in Cavan. We want something done about it. There will be repercussions for it. But yeah, that's and just to say to China and to say to YouTube and any organisation that doesn't like this, the Constitution of Ireland, the Constitution of the Declaration of Human Rights is the freedom of speech, freedom of expression. The Constitution of Ireland is very specific on the freedom of expression. They're very specific. It's very down black and white. People of Ireland are allowed to express their opinion freely and openly. In China, you don't have a constitution, you just have a dictatorship. So, don't come over to Ireland and think that you can bully us around and think that constitution says it very clearly. And it says that every citizen of the Republic of Ireland has the right to their free speech and has no right to be silenced. So that's China wants a constitution amendment, but the people of Ireland will stand. Thank you.